What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Coral Reef Talk. Now, I know it's been a few weeks since Reef A Palooza, but I have so much footage and so many videos that I want to share with you that we're jumping right into the next episode. Now, the last episode, we talked to Chris of Koral Kreations, and we took a look at how he takes coral skeletons and he breathes new life into them by painting them with fluorescent paint. Now, in today's episode, we're going to take a look at an interview that I had with Rachel Fogle of ReefWeeds and some of her awesome fluorescent artwork and just how she got started. So let's jump right into it and take a look at that conversation. What's up? We are here at the ReefWeeds booth here at Reef A Palooza with Rachel. Incredible works of art, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, this is fluorescent artwork inspired by aquatic life, reef life. How'd you get started in doing stuff like this?
You know, I have a reef tank myself, and my background is really in more traditional art, you know, landscapes, seascapes, that type of stuff. But with the oil paints, it would just look blown out over the tank. So I thought, I need something that kind of shows up above the tank. And that's kind of where this idea came from. So went on the hunt for some UV fluorescent paints, and the rest is history, so to speak. So that's kind of where it came from. Of course, awesome. I don't have anything hanging over my tank still, but...
Very nice, because I mean, in our tanks, we got the actinic lighting, we got the blue, the corals are fluorescent, yep. So it just makes sense to translate that in a work of art. And what was one of the, I guess, the very first things that inspired your artwork?
Zoanthids, for sure, you know, and Josh Pork Sandwich, actually, I reached out to him when I was just starting, and I said, listen, do you mind if I use some of your photos for inspiration? Because he takes great photos of his zoanthids, and he has an amazing collection. And he's like, absolutely not. Go right ahead. So, you know, he's been great. And then when I started getting into prints, he actually knows a lot about printers and stuff like that. So actually helped me figure out what type of printer I wanted to buy to, you know, so that I could make my own prints of stuff. So, yeah, and then, you know, the first stuff I started doing were zoanthids, and then it kind of branched out to the Reef Koi series, which has probably been, you know, I would say my most quote-unquote famous series, which are the top-downs of the clownfish. And then I've gone into SBS, and then, you know, I wanted to try something different, so I started with the, you know, kind of the different aquatic life, and, you know, we have the Anthias and the blue ring, which I just recently did, so it's been fun.
Yeah, the blue ring, that's one of my favorites right now. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
But I guess your artwork has also inspired a lot of other artists.
Yeah.
Chris from Koral Kreations said that he was inspired by your work.
Yeah, I know Chris well. He's local to me, and we actually took the Reef News Network mobile RV down together. So Chris, I know Chris well, and that's kind of what he saw all this, and he thought, hey, I can paint coral skeletons, so it's kind of an honor. I'm like, hey, I inspired somebody to paint. That's awesome. So yeah, so it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And with this aquarium growing and evolving, we're seeing a lot more artwork in the hobby now. You doing your work, ReefWeeds, Chris with Koral Kreations, Sean and George doing Aquashella. So a whole lot of art around the hobby.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. You know, I think when I started out doing it, there weren't a lot of artists doing it. So, you know, it was kind of something where I thought, oh, hey, here's I kind of see this need. And I think it's really been cool to see the progression since I started as to, you know, the different artists that came out, or, you know, and I'm always happy to answer questions as to, you know, hey, what paint do you use? Or, hey, you know, how do you do this? Because I feel like, hey, you know what? If I can help other artists, I'm going to help them. So.
Absolutely. And you said you've been painting for how long?
I've been painting for about 30 years. Professionally, I've been selling art for about 12. I still have a day job, but, you know, I've been doing art shows and stuff like that for about 12 years. And then started ReefWeeds about 2.5 years ago. So that's kind of that progression.
And what's some inspiration that you could speak to for like an emerging artist or emerging hobbyist in this scene or just trying to create something in general?
What I would say is stick with something that you love. It doesn't need to be clownfish. It doesn't need to be coral, and come up with kind of, something that's unique to you. Because I think, one thing that was interesting is I talked to somebody here that said, oh, I tried to paint a zoa and it didn't come out great or whatever. And it's like, no, don't stop. Maybe you don't want to paint zoas. Maybe you don't want to use UV paint. Try something that you like, and that you feel comfortable with. It doesn't necessarily need to be, my model doesn't need to be your model. It's something like if you like what you're doing and you feel inspired by what you're painting, it's gonna show. So that's the only advice I could say, and keep working at it. I mean, and my progression over, is a learning curve for me using the UV paints because they are different. They're very translucent, so I learned I need to layer things, and, I always do the base with traditional acrylic and paint it, 'cause my goal is to make sure that the art looks good under natural light and the UV light. So, again, it's a learning curve. It's not, you got to practice, you got to kind of go with it and figure out what works.
Well, very cool, awesome creations here. Thank you so much for talking. Nice meeting you. Thank you so much for checking out this video. There's a lot more Reef A Palooza coverage to come, so be sure you're subscribed to the Coral Reef Talk. If you're not already, go ahead, click that subscribe button and check that bell icon to be notified each and every time I post a new video. There's also Reef A Palooza footage in the description below, so click those links, check out the videos. If you didn't see the interview with Chris of Koral Kreations, go ahead and click that video. Links in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Coral Reef Talk.